an interesting story that happened when my grandmother, Luna, passed away. I went to Montreal together with my mother to support her and to be a part of the Levaya in order to honor my grandmother, which I love so much. I understood at that time that Kabbalah says, mystical teachings in Torah say that the days before a person passes away, specifically a month before, generally a month before, the neshama begins to kind of divest itself, begins the process of divesting itself from its actual body. Some people have an awareness of that time. The tzaddikim have an awareness of that time when things are transitioning. And then on the day that they die, the neshama, is slowly detaching itself from its body. And parts of the neshama of that person, the tzutzais, sparks of that neshama, end up entering into the physical objects around it. And that process continues throughout the 30-day period and then the year when the family is in Avelis, is in mourning. I want to focus on that first part, though, that there begins to be some sort of either consciousness where the person in their body is aware of it based on the purity of their life and what they've done generally. And sometimes it just begins to happen without the actual conscious human being aware of it before their passing. So one of the first things that we did when we got to Montreal was we went to go and visit we went to go to the home that my grandmother was in, the assisted living home. And on the way there, my mother noticed that my hair was very unkempt. We were living in different cities at the time. She was in Milwaukee, I was in Madison. And she said to me, "You got to get your hair cut." And I was like, okay. And I was kind of surprised that that's what she was focusing on, but I could understand it. She's my mother. She wants me to look nice. So as we're pulling up to this assisted living home, I remember just kind of like going around the parking lot and we stepped inside. And the first thing that we saw when we went inside was there was a barber shop. Now, obviously, that barber shop was for the people that lived in the assisted living home. This was not a public barber shop. And my mother was like, "Oh, let's get you a haircut before we even go in our room." And I was like, "Come on, Mom. Can't get a haircut here. This is not for us. This is an assisted living place." And she said, "No, well, let's at least ask." So I wasn't going to say no to my mother. My mother goes right inside of this barber shop in the assisted living home. And the next thing I know, she comes out and she says, "Okay, they have a spot for you. They have an open spot right now for you to get a haircut." I said, "Okay." So I go inside of the barber shop and I sit down and I get my haircut. And when I finish up, the person says to me, after we had talked a little while and I said what I was doing there, I was visiting my grandmother, which I called Grammy at the time. And when she went to go, and I don't remember if it was when she went to charge me for what it was that I owed or if we had given her the cash to pay for it. So I think it was the second she went to go and put the cash in the drawer, so to speak, and give us change for what we were paying, or maybe it was with a credit card, bringing back the credit card. Sorry that I don't remember it perfectly. She comes back and her mouth is agape, is wide open, and she says, "I can't believe this." And we're like, "What?" She was like, "When I went to go and take your payment, I looked at the schedule and I was thinking to myself, normally this spot is open. Normally this spot is not open. Normally at this time during the week, at this part of the month, someone is normally in the chair and there's normally no openings for people to get haircuts right now." She continued, she said, "Your grandmother always got her hair done in a certain interval of time, and she always set it up on a certain day at a certain time slot. And a month ago, she called in and said, 'I want to change my time slot this time to this day at this time. Is that possible?' And it was early enough for her to be able to do that." She said normally she doesn't, let's say it was a Wednesday at 11 o'clock. She never got her haircuts at Wednesday at 11 o'clock. But before she passed away, she changed it last second, so to speak, not last second, but she changed it, many days before to this day at this time, which she never does it in those intervals. It's almost like your grandmother was saving a spot for you. My mom and I were like, whoa, that's crazy, right? So I was sitting in a spot reserved by my grandmother, seemingly, you could say, for herself. But I think the divine providence of it was that perhaps, even if she wasn't aware of it, her neshama, her soul, was aware of the fact that it was time to transition. And she wanted to leave doing a favor for me and for my mother. And so she opened up this spot for me to get the haircut because for sure, while she was alive, that's something that she would have wanted. Again, the concept being that before a person passes away, they begin to have certain spiritual sensitivities that perhaps they didn't have throughout their life. And in this case, you can see something truly incredible, that perhaps Hashem gave her an awareness, or Hashem led her by Hashgacha Pratis at this point in her life to set up a seat for me to sit in to get my hair cut. And to show to my mother and I in a physical way that she maintains her presence and her care in the world, with the world, for her family, in the way that she did while she was alive. And maybe, perhaps even more than before, who knows?